These group of seniors, they used to always drag me to the toilet, beating me up, right? And then the teacher just came in, she just washed her hands, and then she went out.
When I attempted suicide as well, they will say that, you attempted suicide, why are you still alive then? A lot of emotional and mental abuse that I had to suffer. And I think the worst part was the fact that the adults that are supposed to protect me wasn't present at all.
Hi, my name is Shalom. I'm 20 this year and I'm a content creator, influencer, and a freelance dancer.
I'm Ryan. I'm currently a Year 1 business student at NUS, and I'm also the founder of the Catalyst Collective, a youth-led mental health ground-up.
My name is Ivan Lee. I'm a clinical psychologist working predominantly with youth and adolescents.
So when I was in primary school, right, I went to a SEP school. The only mother tongue offered is like Chinese. When I first entered the school already, I was like already exposed or like I was like the victim of a lot of racist remarks and stuff. They would call me names and they would say certain things like, don't let her sit next to the aircon, later her Indian smell will spread, like that kind of thing and stuff like that. But as like I grew older and like I progressed on with my life at the school, a lot of the bullying and the racism became like physical, and it came to a point where there was like a group of seniors that would always like drag me to the toilet. They always say like, cause my skin color is darker, so I was like dirty and I needed to like be cleaner and stuff like that. So they used to like put soap in sweet drinks and force me to drink it. Or they would like try to bleach my skin. If I tried to like fight back, then they would beat me up. Yeah, so that was like the bullying that I faced in school.
Sorry to hear that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I think my experience is a bit different. So, I mean, since young, I was already bullied minorly. I had very low self-esteem. Moving on to a secondary school, I was bullied for being different. So I looked ugly. They say I look ugly. They mentioned a lot of vulgarities and a lot of unpleasant descriptors lah. They started moving on to cyberbullying as well. So one reason why I don't like using social media now and still lasts till this day is because I was bullied very extensively on Facebook. I actually managed to dig out some of the comments for my school talks and stuff, and it's still there. So they mentioned how like people like me shouldn't talk about my problems. That time I wrote a suicide essay for my essay 2. Instead of getting the help I need, my teacher mocked me in front of the entire class, and my classmates all laughed at me. When I attempted suicide as well, they will say that, you attempted suicide, why are you still alive then? Yeah, so I didn't really have a lot of the physical side, but it's a lot of emotional and mental abuse that I had to suffer. And I think the worst part was the fact that the adults that are supposed to protect me wasn't present at all. And as a child with no resources to tap on, I had to fend for myself against everything.
Thank you for sharing. Actually, it must be really tough to go through what you guys have been gone through as well. My previous work, actually, I have to go to schools. So I will go to MOE schools, actually. Go to the schools, speak to the students who may or may not present with mental health concerns. And we actually do get a lot of students who are actually willing to open up with regards to their mental health concerns. However, there are also other students whereby they might have some difficulties that they don't quite agree to having that. So my point is the predominant thing that I have to do would be to see what are you actually struggling in your own terms. And I think that's the key point that generally I will do to students or even to adolescents actually.
So when I was being bullied, right, because I was quite young and also because I was the only Indian girl in like a whole pool of Chinese people, right, I felt very alone at the time, because even though like I was targeted by a group of 3 seniors, it wasn't like the rest of the school was very nice to me. Even when I'm being like bullied to the point where I'm being physically abused, like I feel like I could never talk to my classmates about it or like my schoolmates about it. The teachers at the time were definitely very racist and discriminatory. Even when they hear like the students calling me certain things or like saying certain things about me, they will never like stop them or like they will never say anything to let them know that what they are doing is wrong. And there was even a time when this group of seniors, they used to always drag me to the toilet, right, and they were like beating me up, right, and then the teacher just came in, she just washed her hands and then she went out, and I was shook, bro. I was like, oh, insane. Then that's when I felt like, wow, I'm really alone. I can't even go to a teacher for help.
I think my feelings are quite similar also. Ivan, especially you mentioned how like, we should look at diagnosis beyond just the diagnosis about keeping people safe and whatnot. I didn't experience that at all. So throughout my secondary school incident, I was very alone. I actually locked myself out in the toilet cubicle, and I still remember this. Like, it just came to my mind just now. That time I was in the toilet, then suddenly people were banging against the cubicle, and then they found out it was me, right? They told me to get the out, you know, that kind of thing. And I was just terrified because I just felt like there's no safe space for me to be in. And my own family believed that school is always right. So I still remember that when I knelt down on the floor, I begged. I said, "Can you transfer me out?" They said, "It's an elite school. We don't want to transfer you out." When the incident culminated, and when I was finally denied my access to an education, then they said, "Why didn't you ask us to transfer you out earlier?" So there was a lot of gaslighting involved. There's a lot of loneliness involved. There's a lot of helplessness. But I think most importantly of all, I just felt very, very homeless. If my home is not a safe space, my school is not a safe space, and even the organization I seek for help chooses to side in my school and think that oh, you know, depression, anxiety doesn't exist, only gaming addiction exists, and bullying doesn't exist at all, then who can I turn to for help? And I think that really, I rather not leave. Yeah.
I mean, if let's say we're looking in terms of the research, of course, bullying is basically conducting any form of inappropriate behaviors on someone else. Basically, there's a power play. That I'm a stronger one, you're the weaker one. I impose this imbalance onto you by doing a few things. It could be physically, verbal abuse as well, verbal bullying. I think you also mentioned that, calling you names as well. Nowadays, cyberbullying is a big thing. Basically, bullying is irregardless of context. I want to bully you, I bully you. But of course, there are two different types of bullying as well. I think there's one of it is called reactive bully, and one of it is called proactive bully. Proactive bully generally requires no provocation. I just want to do it to you. Because of this power play, I'm stronger, you're weaker, I just want to do that to you. There's a reactive one. Reactive one generally would be for those who have been bullied before. Because they've experienced certain situations like this, they eventually turn up to be bullied.
I still have PTSD flashbacks. I still have nightmares for all my incidents. I still experience anxiety. So like eating alone in a restaurant or cafe or even hawker center is something that I preferably try not to do because I find it quite scary for me, for lack of a better word. So officially I'm diagnosed with depression, anxiety and PTSD, but I feel like rather than depression, it's mostly stemmed towards the PTSD side of things rather than depression.
I feel like primary school me and the me that I am now, or like even after I graduated from primary school, is like completely different. I feel like I'm a completely new person altogether in the way that like in my hobbies, in my work, in my school life, in my social circle, like I think everything is like completely different. Once I was able to get out of that bad environment, I was able to like, I don't know, like I'm okay now. Yeah, if not, I think I still want my revenge. Yeah, but I think I'm okay now. Yeah.
There are definitely research that suggests that so after the incident of bullying, for instance, so it will last for, if let's say you are being bullied during a teenagehood, then it will last across this teenagehood period or even adolescence actually. But there are also longitudinal studies suggesting that it will last all the way up to adulthood as well. The impacts potentially will be helplessness, anxiety, symptoms of PTSD actually, hyperventilation, so somatic symptoms. There are also papers suggesting poor sleep quality as well. And as we all know, having poor sleep quality basically suggests that you are prone to developing different mental health concerns as well. Academic performance generally will be lower as well. I think one of the papers suggesting like 5 marks of 1 grade lower than the rest as well. But again, it basically will impact your academic performance, not just in terms of your results, but also your attendance as well. I think that's why you kind of already has highlighted, right? There are also papers suggesting differences in terms of male and female as well. Like a male will be more prone to physical bullying experiences, and generally for a female will be the non-physical one, but unfortunately you've gone through that as well.
Yeah, like opposites.
Yeah.
I experienced the emotional, verbal, cyberbullying, which experienced the physical.
Yeah, but again, just because it's more prone doesn't mean that it wouldn't happen entirely as well. But that would be the impact on how bullying can impact the victim's mental health. It could be a cultural thing. Like I think Ryan mentioned earlier on as well, comparatively to Western and Asian contexts. Asian generally is a bit more conservative And with that said, we are more problem solving. So we try to rationalize things, we try to throw something. Hopefully, by just giving you one liner, you will solve everything by yourself. Oh, you're being bullied, must be because you're not studying enough, go study harder. It's a lot easier to provide such an advice actually. Culture is definitely one thing. Hopefully we can learn to express ourselves better and receive better, not just about expressing. A lot of time when we receive, the other issue is that when we hear certain news, we jump into the idea to defend it. Because sometimes acknowledging there's a problem is very difficult to digest. For instance, let's say as parents, if I were to hear my child struggling with bullying and whatnot, it's actually very, very difficult. So my thought process would be, nah, this thing doesn't exist. If I don't acknowledge that such a thing exists, everything is good.
When you mention like power play and stuff, right? I think it's okay to think like I'm better than you. Like, I feel like it's okay, but I think the problem is when you think like you're worse than me. When you think like this person deserves something bad to happen because you're just not as good as me. I think that is why people bully. Yeah.
I think my reasoning is a combination of both points. So like, I think the idea of acknowledging narratives is something that's not really done in Singapore. If you don't acknowledge the problem doesn't exist. So like my experience, like I mentioned, my principal, my teachers say that, oh, it's on your mind, mental health conditions do not exist. And I was like, sure, okay.
What?
Yeah.
It's not uncommon, unfortunately.
It's not uncommon. You'll be surprised to know that it's still very common these days. But I think that's where the interesting part comes into play. I think bullying is a very unsolvable social problem because humans are different. Humans have a need to be powerful. Humans have a need to repress someone else. But I think more importantly also the idea that it's not just about acknowledging narratives, but the idea that systems are perfect. I think there's this very weird ingrained perception that because we are in a more developed country, we think that our system is always perfect. And therefore we have no room to grow. We know you take action. And that is something that I really dislike because no matter how perfect a country is, no matter how developed a country is, there's always going to be bound to be problems. So why should we ignore obvious problems just to preserve this perfect example that, hey, everything's fine. For example, I come from an elite school, we have good grades, we have generating top A students, but there are bullying issues in our school. Why is it that I have to say, as a principal, I have to say that, all our students are perfect students, blah, 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 when in fact there are students getting hurt. And as an educator, shouldn't you be protecting your students to ensure that they get the education they deserve? It's just really that idea that systems are perfect and narratives may not need to be acknowledged. And that causes these problems to keep repeating itself, that even after 10 years later, there's supposed to be learning points from different incidents, especially in the recent years, but we are not learning them because we refuse to learn them.
Bystanders don't understand the severity of the bullying. Like, especially when it comes to like verbal bullying or like cyberbullying, you don't know how much the bullying can affect the victim. Like, maybe you say, oh, you're damn ugly lah, and then maybe in front of you, the victim doesn't like break down, doesn't like, just pretends like it doesn't matter, but maybe when they go home, they'll be very affected by it and stuff like that. So maybe they don't see the need to report it or do anything about it also.
I don't know how to basically get bystanders to help, but rather think about it. If let's say your close one is suffering and you just decide to watch, and one day they disappear, are you going to take the responsibility for the rest of your life?
So a lot of times we will look at bystanders, they get stuck in terms of that. I want to help, but I don't know how. So providing the how is very important. Providing the platform is actually very important. But how do we do it? Like I mentioned earlier, anonymous platform can be helpful. But again, that is solving the bare minimum situation. We still need to kind of like in some ways help them to feel a bit more comfortable that by facing this, confronting these difficulties directly can be more powerful than you go to the anonymous route and whatnot. But again, unless I have enough of support, then I can confront. So what we need to do is to build this support system so that they have enough resources to fight. But if some individuals, yes, they are very brave, they will challenge it head on, like I'm gonna do it. But not all of us are like that. So we have to cater to the system where not all of us are that brave, but yet they still receive the support that they need.
For anyone else who may be struggling with bullying or maybe experiencing the same issues that two of us have faced, for me, I have a very negative experience, but I'll still highly recommend you trying to at least seek help from the official system, in the sense that your teachers, your parents and whatnot. But if all things fail, one thing I'm very thankful for is I meet friends that are outside of my immediate environment. Having these kind of friendships really help to bear those painful moments. One thing I always like to say is to believe in hope lah. Because I think hope is a very powerful thing. Hope in the sense that it gives you the courage and strength needed to push on.
Actually, I feel like I did try my best to reach out to the official channels, and I still got like nothing, no help. I got no help. Even if it's just like a small thing, but I still recommend to just call the police because at least the police are obliged to come down. Like they have to investigate every single report they get, right? At least then maybe it will like scare the bullies a little bit, and then maybe it might not go away, but maybe it might not be so severe as well.
Right now, with social media, with so many texts going on there, everyone learns things fast. And I think that's one way that we can curb bullying or any form of discrimination technically. It doesn't always have to go back to the idea of formal education. The idea of learning from you, learning from lived experience, learning from whoever there is, that itself can be a way to curb bullying, provided we provide enough resources for them to know that I can speak up. I think right now in this culture, unfortunately, speaking up is still not well accepted for various reasons. And what we need to do is to have that reception, that antenna to be built a bit better as well, that when someone says something, instead of denying it immediately, let's take a pause first. Let's just listen first and see what we can do next. Don't jump in and say, no, your problem don't exist. It's really about just listening. That is the key. If we can provide this bit of information into the education system to get everyone to just pause and don't deny anyone else's experience, I mean, this will be a very peaceful society.
Let's talk about recent cases, like the girl that wrote to PM Lee, the other cases that appear on Reddit and stuff. Why is it that it blows up? Then you will see, for example, the Ministry of Education come and say, oh, we condemn bullying, investigation has been done, and we have talked to the victims. But the victims have all came out and said nothing was done for that. The fact they don't acknowledge the problem and the fact they love denying the problem. I think once we get past this stage, a lot of solutions, a lot of community support can come into play already.
I think it goes back perfectly to the idea that in order to recognize a problem, I would actually encourage everyone to speak up as much as they can for those who are comfortable, for those who are not, hopefully with the influence, hopefully with the idea that it's okay to speak up, it's not going to take any toll on you. They're able to speak up, fantastic. I think it's going to take time, even especially like the one that we're looking at, like bullying. It may eventually evolve. As per any behaviors, it will just evolve to another form. Everyone has to change accordingly. There's no policy, there's nothing, there's no rules that you can use forever. Everything has a certain expiration date to it, and the idea is to renew it, to review it, and to see what are the things that we can do better.
I think bullying in Singapore is actually not very discussed about enough. Actually, as a kid, I don't really remember being taught or being told what to do if I see someone being bullied or what to do if I am being bullied. I don't know if times have changed, but this is what I remember.
Ultimately, Singapore is still a very Asian culture. It's still very academic focused. Things like bullying is something that we try to put it under the carpet. Sometimes the system's unwilling to really go through the investigation, or they may not even have the resources to support.
So it will be helpful for us to recognize that this is an existing problem, this is a societal problem, and this is a problem we definitely need to target, not just for the sake of the victim, but it's for the sake of the entire society. When you are stressed, what do? We all do things very differently. Some of us might dance, some of us might sing. I can't sing and dance, so I can play with my cats. Knowing who and what are some of the things that we can do or seek out for to reduce this suffering. I think ultimately it's about speaking up.